didn't even introduce yourself.
I didn't even introduce myself. Wow, I knew going in.
We have to learn how to love kids.
I really learned myself.
85% of our calls are EMS.
And that's not only for police, but, it is for firefighters and 911 telecommunicators.
Our last guest is going to be a great show today.
Mm-hmm.
God said, come as you are, right?
You gotta go down memory lane. Oh, man. No, that was really cool.
Great conversation, you guys. Wow.
You know it feels so good.
All right, good morning, Joy 1340 AM listeners. I am Officer Ralph McClain with the Milwaukee Police Department, the Office of Community Relations, Engagement, and Recruitment. And I am here with...
Yes, sir, my name is Jordan Dickerson. I am one of the recruiters with the City of Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, and we are back with episode 41 of The Conversation.
We welcome everyone who's listening in. We thank you for your continued support. And we would like to say, as we always do, there is a wonderful occupation that's waiting out there for everyone who's ever considered serving this wonderful, beautiful community of ours here in the city of Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. There is the police officer position that is posted on the City of Milwaukee Jobs website. And in addition to that, we also have an apprenticeship for high school seniors, 17 to 20 years of age. It is a paid apprenticeship where we assign them to the various places around the department. And that also can be found on the City of Milwaukee Jobs website. And Jordan has some information regarding that.
Yes, sir. So if you ever just kind of want to get more information and just learn more about the process, not only for the police officer position, but also for our police aide apprenticeship program and our fire cadet apprenticeship style program. It's essentially the same thing, 2-year apprenticeship style program where people are learning about and training about what it is to become a firefighter. You are also able to get your EMT license and paramedic license. But if you ever have any questions, feel free to text this number right here. It's 414-519-6190. Again, that's 414-519-6190. And I just want the people to know, if you're interested in the police department, just understand that there's so many different things that you're able to do on the department. We just had an open house last week, Saturday, and we had some of the specialty units there, and there were so many different units there. We had Harbor Patrol, which is for like boats. We had Mountain Patrol, which is for horses. There was the tactical unit. There was Bomb Squad. You had the K9 unit. Like, there's all these different areas that you can decide to go into if you're interested in. And I always tell people, like, you can take the police officer career as far as you want to go with it, because there's so many different levels and layers that you can kind of go into with the police department.
That is correct. Yeah, well said. And today in the studio on this wonderful October morning here, we've been having some gorgeous weather.
We have.
It's been good. I think I'm getting spoiled.
Getting that nice fall weather coming in. And it's not going straight to cold weather. It's like a nice little adjustment period.
Nice little adjustment period. Yeah, exactly. So in the studio today, we have with us Dr. Heather Sattler. And Heather, when did we first meet?
I was trying to think about that. Was that like 2019, Ralph? 2018?
2018,
2017?
It may have been 2018, 2017. I don't know. Everything pre-2020 is so far.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
But Dr. Heather Sattler has been an educator for over 28 years and is committed to cultivating individual and collective transformation while co-creating communities where young people are essential partners. Heather spent 26 years designing, developing, and teaching within a number of programs in the Milwaukee Public Schools. She spent 11 of her years in MPS at the Alliance School, where she facilitated the creation of school-wide restorative practices led by young people. While at Alliance, she designed and taught a variety of classes, including restorative practices, and co-facilitated workshops with students for young people and adults from the local, national, and international communities at places like Harvard University and Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. In addition to her work within schools, Heather co-facilitates restorative practices workshops with Alliance alumni and people from a variety of local and national organizations while working with numerous partners to cultivate community-wide practices in Milwaukee and beyond. Heather received her doctorate in education from Alverno College in 2021, but most of all, she is grateful to be walking through life with her 3 children as she co-creates transformational spaces for authentic connection and healing.
Whoa.
I would like
Wow.
to say,
You need a break after all that?
I can
I'm
keep going.
blushing.
Let's keep going. We'll go.
Alright.
We are so honored to
Yes.
have inside of the studios here at 1340 Dr. Heather Sattler.
Yes, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you so much for inviting me. I'm really grateful to be with both of you.
We're
Awesome.
grateful to have you here. And it's one of the things at various moments in the beginning of the show, we'll always ask where a person is from. And the years that I've known you, I've never, I don't think, asked that. You are from Milwaukee?
Yes, born and raised in Milwaukee.
And you went to school here?
Yes, I did. Yes, I
Okay.
did here in Milwaukee
Here in Milwaukee.
for most of my education.
What school did you go to?
Where do you want to start?
Oh, so it's not okay. Where'd you graduate from, I guess you should ask.
Well, I'm a double alum of Alverno College. You
Okay.
can see I'm repping Alverno.
Yep.
I have a shirt on today. So I'm really grateful.
Okay.
I graduated there in 1996
Okay.
with a background in education, and then again in 2021
Awesome.
with a doctorate in education.
That's
So
awesome.
And you haven't lived anywhere else, you've always lived here in Milwaukee.
I've always lived in Milwaukee, and also I have been really blessed to have many people whom I love from many different lands, and so I've had the opportunity to spend significant periods in different
Okay.
places. And
That's
so my
awesome.
children's father is actually from Morocco, and so I've spent quite a bit of time there. It's very much like a second home to me.
Awesome.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
What's the big difference between Morocco and over here?
There is a palpable sense of community. And I think that here in Milwaukee, there are a number of us who are very committed to co-creating community,
Mhm.
right? And I think there is a way of being in Morocco that is very focused on living in community, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's making sure that people have food on the table, right? Neighbors taking care of each other, or really looking at how do we handle disputes, right? So there's a collectivist way of approaching life.
Oh, great.
That's nice. So I want to get into with just the restorative practice, the restorative justice. I was mentioning to you earlier how when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to be a part and get trained in some of the restorative practices and restorative justice. And at the time, of course, me being in a high school student, it was something that my mom decided to put me in. And I'm like, Mom, why am I what is the purpose of, even taking this course, right? Like, I'm just not understanding, but we always know that moms know best, right? They know what they're
That's
doing.
right.
And it's that's really something super instrumental, and I think it's important for a lot of people to learn. It's just the ability to be able to kind of discuss things, discuss topics in a safe space, and be respectful amongst one another. Tell us about what kind of led you to starting something like that, and where did it all kind of grow about?
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say I'm grateful here to be in Milwaukee, which is actually, we're on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee lands,
Mm-hmm.
and honoring the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan. So I
Mhm.
want to start with that.
Yeah.
because I'm so grateful.
Mhm.
Great.
We have a deep and rich history, and we're, I think, all in a space of coming to reckoning with that history
Mhm.
on this land and around the world, right? And so this work began for me many years ago. I first started teaching in 1996 at John Marshall High School. Some of the young people with whom I worked are in their 40s now. It's amazing to see them having babies and getting married, and they're my work partners now.
Right.
It's really exciting. But my philosophy of teaching has always been to really look at young people and ask, where is your magic? Because I really see that within young people. And so I have a background in the arts. Right, and so I would work with young people to really invite them to think about what is their magic, where are their gifts, what do they care about, and who in the community is asking for what they have to offer. And then how can we create something where they can have an exchange with the community? So back in those days, it was through video production, it was through creating theater, right? So those are ways that I would work with young people and look at community organizations, and very much in the space of the circle without realizing it, right? Co-creating with young people to create this work so there would be these beautiful exchanges. And so when I came to the Alliance School, I was really fortunate to meet Yvette Morel, who's my first teacher. And her wisdom actually hails from the Blackfoot, Ojibwe, and Choctaw nations. And so prior to coming to that space, because I'm a seeker, I grew up just always seeking, right? I grew up Catholic, always like seeking about life, trying to understand, why am I here? Why are we here? What are we doing? Yes, right? So I grew up Catholic, but I grew up with the hippie nuns who invited us to question the system, invited us to really connect with ourselves and each other, sitting in the space of circle. And prior to meeting Yvette, I had done a lot of soul searching, right? I had studied other religions. I'd been part of the Muslim community for about 25 years and just continued to seek and to learn and connect with my heart and with the hearts of others. And so I had gone on a really deep healing process for about 10 years, and then I met Yvette. And so when I came to the Alliance School, I had this privilege of sitting in circle with her. And she has a beautiful sacred way of holding the space of circle. And so after working with her for a few months, I really began to understand the power of the circle as a space of liberation for myself. And so I took my philosophy of teaching and working with our young people and kept inviting them into the space of liberation too. Right? And then it very quickly moved into that philosophy that Yvette mentioned earlier about teaching and working with our young people to be the people who create and facilitate the space. And then what I'll say, in addition to that, what I realized that in order for our young people to lead powerfully, it's important for all of us as grown folks to be well within ourselves and be connected with ourselves and each other and to understand this work so that we can take a step back and trust young people's leadership and hold the space.
I was going to ask that question, what led the focus to be more so towards young people, because that's not often that you see that. And we talk about this quite some time on the show, is where, as adults, you get to a point in stage where you look down on the next generation. You're like, oh, these kids, like, there's always something wrong, right? Like my generation, we could look down at the next generation, like, yeah, see these kids right here, that's a problem with them. But there is something to be said and had about, teaching and pouring into the next generation. So just talk about why that focus was with the youth and not with a different dynamic with a different group.
Well, our young people are a reflection of us, and they hold very deeply all the wounds ancestrally and what we're carrying here.
So you mean what you're saying, Heather, is Gen Z is a reflection of us Gen X?
Right.
Okay, Ralph. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna own that, right? Just like my babies are a reflection of me.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you what. When I hold in circle space and I look at people in the circle and they're kind of acting some kind of way, I have to check myself and see like, what am I bringing? Right?
No, I hear you.
So, but it's really true. I do think our babies are a reflection of us. And I also think we all are extraordinarily powerful, right? And so I think our young people are extraordinarily powerful. And I think we're all necessary, right? And so just that is why. And so when I was learning this work, I said to Yvette, I'm really thinking like a teacher. I would love to create a class. And from the work that you're doing, she had already come with a class. David Lerman had he was an ADA in Milwaukee for many years. He learned this work from Kate Pranis and brought this to Milwaukee Public Schools and the DA's office. There's a rich history of many people who have preceded me, Shonda Perry Finch, Mariah Weingrad. There's so many people who are doing this work. But what I appreciated so much that I noticed in general is that we were holding space for young people rather than with them. And so what I loved about being at the Alliance School, when Tina Owen Moore was the school leader there, we were a teacher-led school. We had no security. The community was the security. And what we saw very quickly, as our young people were learning this work, there was a really big shift in the culture, right? And so at the end of several years, what ended up happening is our young people were facilitating quarterly community building circles. They would look at what was happening in the community, they would hold space about it, staff understood what the work was, we were holding regular circles with each other, and we had a whole system. If there was a problem, we would have individual conversations, we'd have repair harm circles. We eventually worked on something called a peer counsel circle, which came out of a model that Sharon Lerman, one of my former work partners, I got Morrell and James Morrell all worked on when Jackie Mann asked them to do that work in Milwaukee.
Oh, that's my godmom.
Oh, how about that?
Yep,
Oh, bless her.
Yep.
See, Milwaukee is small.
Right. Yeah.
But so I really worked with young people to listen to them, and we had a lot of conversation with them, with their parents, with our community, to really think about what's needed. And then people started to recognize their might, so we started to go out in places like UW Milwaukee and teaching other young people and adults, and pretty soon the work broadened to the places that you mentioned earlier and beyond. And so Sharon and I had this opportunity to teach many people around Milwaukee, and the young people with whom I was working were always our partner in that. And so this grew into a much larger effort where I met Ralph.
Awesome.
And truth be told, my goal is for all of us not to be necessary. Like, I would love for all of us to have this way, like we talk about Morocco. There is no perfect place or perfect way,
Right.
but to have this deep sense of community where we're taking care of our hearts, we're listening to each other, inviting others to take care of their hearts, and being able to be in relationship within each other, and also to look at how do we really heal and transform conflict.
Yeah.
So that's really important to me. And so we were doing this work in Milwaukee and thinking about how do we create a space where instead of kids being arrested, how do we create a space for them to come pre-charge and be in a space of holding circle. And sometimes people think like, oh, in restorative justice, it's the easy way out. You know, anyone who's ever gone through the dark night of the soul or sat with themselves, no, it's not an easy way.
Right.
But it's a matter of seeking to understand, why are we doing what are we doing? What do we need? And when we're able to get that kind of support, then we're able to say, okay, now what can I do to support the healing of a situation that I've caused? And looking at the larger context of the community, because our children do not exist in a vacuum. And also looking at how do we care for people when they've been hurt, right?
Right.
And what kind of healing do they need? And then how do we ultimately come back to actually do sorry rather than just say sorry, right? So there's been a much larger vision for Milwaukee being this space where we can create healing and work with our young people. So there's a bigger project that we worked on for many years, but suffice it to say, it really includes many people who do this work in Milwaukee, in the sphere of education, in the legal sphere, at many different places, a lot of nonprofit organizations. We had a gathering at Marquette University last spring, 70 people came together, and that wasn't even everybody, who are actually doing this work in different places. And so, you know, we're looking at how do we really bring the community together in a way where we can recognize our value.
That, you know, and you mentioned Sharon.
Yes.
So yeah, when I was blessed with the opportunity of being on the community relations unit. Well, at that time it was called Office of Community Outreach and Education, OCO. And I was like, man, I actually get to do a little bit more than just, you know, patrol and answer calls for service. And not that wasn't, I mean, I enjoyed that service to make some attempt to restore order, but now I get to get a little bit deeper and have and engage with the community and interact, you know, with the community at large. And then the double blessing onto that is when we came into contact with Heather and Sharon Lerman and started, and they allowed us as officers to sit in circle and then start training. And how can we implement that on the department?
Yeah, that's good.
You know, because it's one thing, you know, with us as officers, you have someone that, you know, may commit a crime, and then you're looking for justice for that crime.
Right.
And then it's whatever justice, whatever fine, whatever that may look like, you know. But then you start to think, it's like, okay, there may be that justice part, but what about the healing part? What about the repairing part?
Right.
You know, how do you get to that? And so the wonderful way that Heather and Sharon had you know, taught us and tried to implement it into the department, it was just like, man, this is something that is just so much needed in our community and our society in general.
Yeah.
So it was just such a godsend to where we were able to take part in that, and it stuck with me to this day. And hopefully we can continue that. We can continue that. So what has been, would you say, has there been any challenges to implement that? I've seen it firsthand, because even going inside of alliances, I've seen like the circles, I've seen what you do. But is there some pushback to that as well from folks?
Yeah, so there's so many things that are going through my mind, Ralph. I want to just, if I could just go back to another
Sure,
thing.
you sure can.
So I wanted to say, when I first learned this work from Yvette, I said to her, I'm thinking about how do I further develop this into a class, and would you, is it okay with you, essentially? I let her kind of look at my work and say, this is what I've learned from what you're teaching me. Is it a reflection of it, right? And she said yes, and I said, what do you think would be a good next step? And she said, just keep going. Right? And so I bring that into this space of just keep going. And to set context, I am going to get to your question, to set context about the practice of the circle. So restorative practices are many, right? And the circle is one of the many restorative practices. And I have to say, I believe it's the heart of the work, because when we sit in circle, much like you're talking about, Ralph, we cultivate a deep listening for ourselves and each other. We get to see ourselves and each other through our stories. We have an opportunity to share our stories as a way of unburdening ourselves and creating healing. But also, we have an opportunity to really listen to others, right? And we also, when stories rise up in us to share with them, they can be medicine for other people as well, right? And we trust every person to have the wisdom to know what stories will hold them or carry with them and which ones they won't, right? Because the reality is, and this is getting to the part that you're talking about, is that we all have stories about who we are based on our experiences and our families of origin, right? And our families, you know, we do our very best. I'm a mother of 3, right? So you're right, you listen to your mama, we know. But I think about like how there are some stories that we hold that are born from our experiences when we're younger, based on other people's fear and pain, right? And so some of those stories don't align with the loving truth of who we are. And that is like blessings to our elders, to our ancestors, because we're all seeking to understand, right? And also, we're all born in different bodies, and we have different experiences based on the bodies we're born into, especially in this country, in this context, right? And so we have stories about who we are about that as well. So I think there's this healing, this unwinding that happens as we come into that greater alignment, that loving truth of who we are, right? Truth that is which unchanging, when connected to that divine wisdom. So that's how I think about it. So in terms of difficulty, so at a place like Alliance, where it was a teacher-led work and there was an idea about sharing power, right? Where there was a collective sense already, there was a beautiful space for the work. And the community very much worked with me as I was co-creating. And Tina Owen Moore is the kind of leader who says, what do you need? How can I support you? Let's do this together. We will do this with each other, right? And then when there's a different kind of leadership, that's that more of a horizontal power gesture. When there's more of a vertical leadership in other spaces I've been in, it can be threatening when people come in as a collective and say, we're going to do this together, you know, or how can we do this together? Right, so that can be very threatening. And so I think that there is, and I think we're seeing some fear really rising up in our country, around the world, around holding on to what we might perceive as power and control, versus if we open up our hearts and really recognize that when we create this connection with ourselves and with each other, and we think about how do we do this together, right, then there's a space of healing. So I think that fear has gotten in the way of this work, and my fear too, right? And my anger and my righteousness. And so like, sometimes I'm like, we always say, Ramsey Braden, one of my former students from Alliance, brought this beautiful poem called In the Kesh, which is written by Luis Valdez, inspired by my wisdom. And then basically the wording is, you are my other me. Right, and so sometimes there are some people who do things that I just feel like, nope, not them. They're not my other me.
Right,
But of course,
that don't make sense at all.
everybody is. But somehow, like, the healing for me is, you know, how do I come to a space of healing within myself and be in relationship with myself and that person? And sometimes it means keeping a loving distance.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
But rather than carrying around this burden of like hatred, right? But it's a process to get to that. You are my other me sometimes.
Yes.
I'm glad you answered. That was going to be my question, but she answered it already in
I heard you, Ralph.
In that cash. So I was going to ask you to explain it in that cash a little bit, but you did. You know, you are my other me.
Yeah.
So what I do to you, I do to myself.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And it's just, to me, I love the aspect, and I see the importance of us being able to have conversations with people and talk with people, and also not be divisive and angry. And I was just talking with with my coworker the other day, and I was saying, of course, we know like election time is, it's here. It ain't around the corner no more. It's here. You getting the text messages and everything from people,
all the
right?
commercials,
right? But it's like, it seems like us as a society or people, we forget who we are during this time, and we can't even have conversations with the different party without saying some type of rude or negative or attacking them in some type of demeaning way. And I'm like, I want us to get back to the era where we're able to discuss things, have conversations, even if we don't see eye to eye on something. That doesn't necessarily mean that I have to shun hate to you. I should still be able to talk to you, have conversations with you, and speak love. And we can, at the end of the day, walk away from the conversation like, yeah, you know what? We may not agree on a certain topic, but we at least have a more of an understanding for each other. And it goes back to, it's just those simple conversations, they really matter, and understanding that you want to treat people with respect, and what's done to you what you do to others is what's going to be done to you at the end of the day. And we always kind of have to remember that. And like I said, just get back to the time where it's okay to disagree with somebody, but still do it in love, and like not do it in hate and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's so important, Jordan. And I think about and when there's such a divergent perspective, and I've run across people who have really divergent perspectives from me, right? And so I think the magic has always been listening for what are the values that we share, and how do we respectfully hear each other. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Definitely, it is. And it's funny because I was just talking with also my coworkers the other day, and we were going over this topic, and we were talking about, this person, they were in a marriage for I want to say like 10 years or something like that, and their significant other passed away. And then, like, within 2 months, the person, was on dating apps and, trying to find somebody. And me and my one coworker, we were like, that just makes zero sense at all. Like, how could you even do that? And, she's like, yeah, I don't even think he really loved her and stuff like that. And it's like, but we have to be careful of those little things, right? Because that's you coming from your perspective and from your understanding. But you don't know this person's life. You don't know what they have to deal with, their coping mechanisms. And I'm over there like, I just think that's unhealthy. And it's like, that's from my own self-righteousness. That's how I look at things. But I have to be mindful and understand that, not everybody is going to think the same way. Not everybody's going to operate the same way. So I just have to come from that place of understanding. And hey, even if I don't understand it, even if I don't get it, that is something that you deal with. That's something that you have to go through. And I don't know what your experience was. Like you said, we all have our own bodies. We all are our own person. We all have our own different experiences.
And I say that work begins within ourselves.
Absolutely.
How do we be in relationship within ourselves and have that compassionate curiosity? And also, let's be clear, there are times when we have to hold a really hard line. And I think that holding people accountable is an act of love.
Oh, yes.
And so I think about Danielle Sered's book, Until We Reckon. She does really powerful work. She works with people who have really harmed other people, who have taken the lives of people's family members, and does this intensive work of healing with both parties who come willingly together toward healing and coming together. So people in those situations can do the inner work of healing and come together as a collective, as a community, to come back together and to transform that pain, right, into connectedness and love. I think we can do that when it comes to having divergent political perspectives.
And I'm happy you brought it back up and said, but that starts with you, right? It starts with you having that conversation with yourself as well. And you spoke about it, how you went on a soul-searching journey, right?
Still on it.
Right, still on it. I think we all are, honestly, But it's like, we still try to, we're always trying to figure out that purpose and everything. But it's like, you have to do the work within yourself. And once you are actually able to say that you're healed and you're always working to improve yourself and go deeper within yourself, then that's when you're able to start to, really have a different perspective and show love unto others and show respect unto other people too.
Yeah.
Can I drop one more quote?
You sure can.
One of my beloved former students, Shakira Addison, basically said we start with the circle inside ourselves, right? And then it extends outwards. So
Yeah,
our
yeah.
babies know.
They do. They do. It has been such a lovely time, a lovely experience having you inside the studio here and talking with you. We could go on.
Yeah.
It's been so
Ever.
Put
fun.
another 15 minutes on that, right?
20, 30 minutes, maybe another hour.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we thank you. And there is one thing we would like to do is for those who want to learn more about restorative practices or circles, how would they get in contact with you?
Okay, pretty easy. Heather Sattler 0@gmail.com. So HEATHER, S like Sam, ATTLER 0@gmail.com.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
That's
Excellent
awesome.
episode.
We gotta get you an Instagram.
I know, I'm a little behind. I'm kind of like in the dark here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining
Yes.
us, Dr. Sattler. We appreciate it. And to our listeners, thank you. And we will talk to you again next week.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. God bless.